is Sarah Wood. I'm the State Program Manager for KFIRS at the Office of the State Fire Marshal in Kansas. This is a quick start guide for helping you do your KFIRS or KFIRS, whatever you want to call it, reports using the Federal Client Tool. This is the web-based version, also called DEBI, or Data Entry Browser Interface. Usually in my emails I will include a direct link to DEBI, and you'll notice up here I even have a bookmark, and I suggest that you bookmark the login as well. But if you don't have the direct link, you can still get there. I have up the usfa.fema.gov website, and as we go through, don't be afraid, hit pause on the video as many times as you need. This is the new front page for KFIRS. To get to that section, we're going to click on Data, and then KFIRS in the green. And it used to be KFIRS.fema.gov, but now it's this section here. There's a lot of different information here. We're not going to go through it all, but there's some training, support, KFIRS grams. What we're going to go to is KFIRS applications, and then we are going to scroll down until we see Report Incidents DEBI, which is entering KFIRS incidents via a web browser. This will take you to the login where you will enter your username and your password. The state for Kansas is just KS, you don't type out Kansas. If you don't have a username and a login, you need to back up, contact me, and I can get you set up with one. You can do that either via email or telephone. After you have logged in, you will get this warning that says you're about to access a U.S. government information system, you're restricted, authorized. Go ahead and click on OK, and it will open it up. This is your main screen once you log in. At the top in the green ribbon, this is what we use mainly. For me, it will say Fire Department Kansas, but for you, it will give an actual department name, and then, of course, your username and your state. For new incidents, you're going to click on New Incident. Open Fire Department will open up the truck and the personnel information for your department. That is where you can enter the trucks that you have, the people that are on your roster. You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you want to do the module called Apparatus and Resources, you will need to have your trucks and people entered here. That module, the Apparatus and Resources module, what it will let you do is when you create an incident, you enter all the information, then you add the module, and you actually say which trucks went and which people went. Otherwise, only the amount of trucks and the amount of people is captured on the report. So I'm not going to start there. If you want to find out what's in the system, you can click on Incident Search, and it will open up to a window like this. Yours is probably opening up much smaller just because of the resolution on my screen I have up. So if you want to find out, you normally would not have to enter any FDID here. I don't normally search by an incident number just because you would have to get it exactly correct. What I normally do is search from an incident date, which I will enter the date, and then I will hit search in the lower right. We'll say please wait, and then it will go through. It takes a few seconds depending on how many reports you have. And then after it loads, you will get a screen like this. It'll say search results, how many it said. If you had over 500 incidents in what you searched for, it will only give you the first 500. So you may need to go back and change the date or the search criteria. So it will go in order from oldest down to newest, and it will give you information. I'll start up here. It will say the FDID, your state, the date of the report, the number, exposure, validity, whether it's valid or invalid. Invalids are ones you should pay attention to because it means that the report is missing information. It will give you the street or highway and then the city where it was. So as you just kind of scroll through here, those are all the information. Now I'm going to go down here to a test one that I've already entered, and I'm going to hit open. And I entered this one for a grass fire webcast that I did a while ago. So when you first open up a report, it will bring you to this screen called Key Information. And the Key Information screen, and it will look the same whether you hit New Incident or you open a new incident. But the Key Information screen will ask you for an incident date, your number, which you assign. I do not assign them, you do. You can start with 160001, 16002, and then kind of go up from there, or 1, 2, 3. You can use your dispatch number, your CAD number, It's really up to your local policies, what you want there. Exposure number is 99% of the time going to be all zeros, and it should default to 000 here. Exposures are fires that start other fires. So if you have a grass fire that starts a house fire, you enter a report for your grass fire with exposure as 000 as your base fire. And then you actually enter another report using this create new exposure here and do the structure fire. So 99% of the time, exposure is going to be 0, and this is usually the first field that hangs up people when they first log on. Your FDID should default to whatever your username is. You're assigned an FDID every time you do, every time you get one. So as soon as you enter this screen, you would hit save, and it says not modified because I didn't change anything. But what you would have after doing a new incident, on the left side, you would then have a basic. So you would click basic. And I'm using this report because it's all made up information, so I don't want to get into somebody's real report and have that out on YouTube here. So on the basic module, the very top has to do with the address. And I'm going to hit backspace so you can see. There are several different formats for addresses you can use. If you're at a structure, you would obviously want to use street address. Here I use directions because I was doing a grass fire and it wasn't really it was, a fake fire at a field. So if it was a house fire, I'm going to change this to street address, and we'll say it was at 111 North Kansas Street. And then I'm going to leave the city and the state and the zip, and I'm going to delete that out of there. So that would go there. Now the yellow fields are minimum required. However, just because a field is white does not necessarily mean it's not important. If this occurred in an apartment, it would be important to put down the apartment information. The next section has to do with incident type, and your incident type, there are several. I'm going to hit backspace so you can see the full list here. Depending on your browser, whether you're using Google Chrome, your Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, depending on what you're using is how this list comes up. Now for me right now, I always get this 412 gas leak on top because I have Chrome. It's not something that they built the system to do, it's just how Chrome displays the list. So there's not really anything that they can do about it. The nice part is that for incident type and most fields, they are preloaded with codes, which means you can start typing a word and the codes will start coming up. So for this one, it was a grass fire, but let's pretend it was a vehicle accident. So I can start typing vehicle accident, and then it will bring up, vehicle accident injuries, cleanup, pedestrian, no injuries. So it will bring up all of those. I'm going to keep this as grass fire for now. If you want to see the whole list, and I recommend this for everybody, there is a cheat sheet on our website, and you go to firemarshal.ks.gov, and there is a KFIRS section. Come over to Agency Resources and go down to KFIRS and FIRS. There's a whole section of information here that I highly suggest you look over no matter what, including a current reporting status, and it will tell you when your last report was done, how many reports we have for each month, and things like that. But what we're interested in right now is this quick reference guide called Incident Type Cheat Sheet. Once it loads, this is a one-page front and back sheet, and on the front page gives you all the incident types. On the back page gives you two more fields. One is called property use, and the second is actions taken. For now, we're interested in the incident types. There are 176 codes, but it's important for you to at least skim through them and see the categories. Like for fire, there's structure fire category here. There's mobile property, which is like mobile homes. There's vehicles. There's vegetation, grass fires, outside trash fires. It goes on down through EMS. So there's vehicle accidents here, extrication, water, service calls are over here, and it just kind of goes through. Spend a few minutes just looking over the list, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time when you come to actually do a report. If you want to save this or print this, you just kind of hover over. This is the save disk, and then this is the print. So I'm going to leave that up for the time being. Let's get back over here. So I've entered grass fire, then it's going to ask you about mutual aid. I put mutual aid received on here, but let's pretend that I didn't get any aid. So I'm going to enter it as none. If you helped another fire department or a fire department helped you, that's what mutual aid is about. Now, you don't necessarily have to enter their FDID, the state, and their incident number. If you don't, the system will give you a warning saying that you should, but it's okay. You can ignore that warning. The last section here on the first part, it has to do with alarm times and dates. Use these check boxes to save yourself some time so you don't have to keep entering the whole date there. Arrival, controlled, and last unit cleared. Those are in military times. Watch out for calls around midnight. For controlled time and controlled date, that's really only necessary for fires. If you are canceled en route, you do not have an arrival time or a controlled time. So that's the first section. You want to hit save as often as possible, and if you'll notice, there are multiple tabs along the top. You do need to go to the second tab, and actions taken are what you did on scene. So if I hit backspace, and it's going to give me all of these actions that you can take here. If you're fighting fire, extinguish should always be one of them. If it's a wildfire, there are wildlands like contain fire, confine fire, control, establish fire lines. I'm going to go ahead and add one of these just to show you. If you want to get rid of it, it looks like there's no way, but if you hover between these two, and you'll get this line right here that's blank. Click on it and you can get rid of the code. It's, again, a thing to do with the browser that I use since I use Chrome. On the resources, there's number of trucks and number of personnel. If you want to use the Apparatus and Resources module, that's over here under Add Module, Apparatus and Personnel. That's where you assign the actual trucks and the people. You would just check this box right here. If you don't want to use that module, you put in the total number of trucks and the total number of people. Other apparatus are POVs or chief's cars and things like that. For grass fires, vegetation fires, things like that, they don't really have a property loss. You don't need to do property loss or contents loss for anything that's not fire related, so a vehicle accident, you would skip this. I'm going to go ahead and check none here. You don't have to. It will give you a warning that says property and contents loss are missing. Warnings are things that you can ignore. It's critical errors that you have to pay attention to. The next section has to do with casualties. There are fire service fatalities and injuries. You would just enter a total number here. If anybody was injured on your department, you would enter the total number of injuries, and then there is an additional module called fire service casualties. You would add that module. Other deaths and other injuries have to do with fires, and I wish that they would add that keyword in there to say other fire death or other fire injuries. This is not needed for vehicle accidents or EMS calls, just fires. On H2 detector, this is for structure fires that are like cooking fires, trash fires, anything inside. If there was hazardous materials involved, here is a list of that, codes there. There is a hazmat module that if it is a big hazmat release or if it's something complicated like a radiation spill or something that goes into the waterway, I would highly recommend that you do the hazmat module. The last field is property use. I'm going to hit backspace so you can see all of these. These are, they're in category order here with the other, like 120 codes that end in 0 or other codes. Those are in the last. You can start typing, so like field, open land or field for pasture. The one code that throws everybody off is that there's no yard. It will just come up as like railroad. Instead of yard, it's actually called graded and cared for plots of land. But if you look on my cheat sheet, there is actually, I'm going to zoom this in, I did actually write yards for 938. You can type the code in and hit tab. You don't have to type in the words. So if you know it's 938, you can just type that in and go forward. I'm going to hit save. The next two tabs have to do with owners and people that are involved. Put the information that you're comfortable. If you don't want to put anything in there, you don't have to. It's not required. L through M is your incident remarks or narrative. I highly suggest that you always do a narrative. If you're not comfortable doing a narrative in INFRS, have something on scene or at your station on paper. Your narrative is very cheap insurance. Have good quality data as much as you can in that narrative for you. You never know when you're going to have to need it. You never know when someone's going to go, hey, do you remember this fire from 5 years ago? And you're going to need this information. You have your officer in charge or your incident commander, and then you have member making the report. When you are writing the report, this is you. You would enter your information here. The special study tab is not a tab that you need. I recommend not even clicking on it. Sometimes it can lock your computer up, so I avoid clicking on it altogether. And then I hit save. There are additional modules that you need. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this one module to show you. This is a grass fire, and it will give you a critical error. Say critical errors and warnings exist. View the error list. I'm going to click there. It will open up a new tab and it will tell you fire module, fire or wildland module required given incident type, severity, critical. What that means is that because I said it was a grass fire, I need either a fire or a wildland module to capture information about the fire or the wildland. Now, for those of you who are in Kansas, there is an additional cheat sheet, and it is under KFIRS reference guide. And to make this video a little shorter so you're not sitting here watching everything, these cheat sheets will tell you all of the modules that are required when you are doing like a grass fire or something else. And I'm trying to scroll here. Here's a vehicle fire. So when you have a vehicle fire, it will tell you these are your incident types. These are the modules that you need. So we need a basic and a fire. Here's the information to enter for a basic. And then here is the information to enter on the fire module. The modules are set up the exact same way. So I'm going to add in a wildland. I'm going to click add. And it's as simple as that. This little red X here means that you're trying to delete that module. It does not mean that there are critical errors. So if you have this vicious cycle where you're hitting the X and deleting the module, thinking that there are critical errors in it, you will just give yourself more critical errors. It works the same way as the basic module. Most are preloaded with codes where you can go through and choose codes. And you go through, you can start typing contributing factor, we can go wind, we can go, well, there's playing with heat source, which is a big one, arcing, design deficiency, abandoned discarded materials is a big one, that's cigarettes, it's throwing something out that's too hot. You can have 2 of those. What I did want to show you is human factors. If you have more than one human factor, let's say that they were possibly impaired by alcohol, we're going to click there, and that they were asleep. We can't click both of them this way. So we click possibly impaired. On your keyboard, hold down the control button, which is CTRL, and then click asleep, and it will highlight both of those for you. Normally your human factors are none, so I'm just going to click there. And then there's save and next tab. I'm going to show you the rest of the tab here. Heat source, again, you can start typing like cigarette. There's cigarette there, there's hot embers, ashes. If it was a vehicle that started the fire, if it was equipment that started the fire, you can see the equipment list is pretty long. Acres burned is the big one here. So that is your quick start guide to getting in there, making sure that you're checking over the tabs for the yellow fields. Your errors list is going to tell you what's missing. So if I hit the errors list here, it's going to say required data. These are the name of the fields. So attribute is actually, area type is the name of the field, heat source is the name of the field, fire cause, total acres burned, contributing factors. Module will tell you where the field is located, and then attribute is the field name. Severity will tell you a warning, it can be ignored, a critical, you need to fix it. So after you're done, you just hit save, make sure that you hit save, and then you can hit close. And it'll say, are you sure you want to close this? I'm going to say okay. Then you're done. You hit new incident, you go through and keep going. If you have any questions, you can always call me or email me. You can find my contact information at the very top of the KFIRS section as well, so you can email me or call me from there. Thank you.